Now...
Hold on, soldier. We're getting you out of here.
Welcome to Soul Spirit Stories, where true strength rises from the shadows, where hearts are tested, and courage redefines what people think they know. Today's story is about a girl who was mocked, underestimated, and humiliated, until one moment changed everything. This is the story of how they laughed at her excuse during physical training until she took off her jacket and silenced everyone. The morning sun was barely peeking over the horizon when the students lined up on the high school athletic field. It was a day everyone had been talking about all week, the annual physical endurance test. For some, it was a chance to prove themselves. For others, it was a dreaded challenge they just wanted to survive. Among the crowd stood a quiet girl named Emma. She was small, almost fragile-looking, with a soft voice and eyes that never seemed to meet anyone else's for long. Her brown jacket hung loosely around her shoulders, even though the air was already warm. While everyone else stretched and joked around, Emma stood silently at the end of the line. "Hey, Emma, you planning to run in that jacket?" one of the boys shouted. His name was Carter, the team captain and self-proclaimed best athlete in school. His friends snickered beside him. Emma said nothing. She just gave a small, awkward smile and looked down at her shoes. "Maybe she's hiding her wings under there," another voice chimed in. "Or maybe she's afraid to sweat." Laughter rippled through the group. Emma clenched her hands inside her sleeves, her heart pounding. She didn't want to draw attention, not today. The instructor, Coach Davis, blew his whistle sharply. "All right, everyone, settle down. You all know the rules. We'll start with the 800-meter run. Let's see what you've got." The students lined up at the track. Carter looked over his shoulder at Emma again, smirking. "Try to keep up, jacket girl," he said. When the whistle blew, the runners shot forward. Dust rose beneath their shoes as they circled the field. Carter led easily, his friends right behind him, shouting encouragements and taunts. Emma started slow. Her pace was gentle, deliberate. She could feel their eyes on her, their judgment, their laughter. Halfway through the first lap, Carter passed her again, already mocking. "You're barely moving." "What's your excuse this time?" But Emma didn't answer. She kept her eyes on the ground, and her breathing steady. By the end of the run, Carter and his friends were laughing, catching their breath, while Emma came in last. Coach Davis scribbled something on his clipboard. "Emma, that was slow. You feeling okay?" She nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. My shoulder hurts a bit today." That was all it took. Her words became the spark for another round of jokes. "Shoulder hurts," Carter mocked. "From what, carrying that big jacket?" Even Coach Davis chuckled under his breath before turning away. Later that morning came the push-up test. One by one, students took their turns, some groaning, some impressing everyone with perfect form. When Emma stepped forward, someone called out, "Careful! She might dislocate her shoulder." More laughter. Emma lowered herself into position, trembling slightly. 1, 2, Coach counted. By the time she reached 6, her arms began to shake. She winced and Coach stopped her. "All right, that's enough." "Don't strain yourself," Carter clapped slowly. "Amazing performance, Emma. Maybe next year, huh?" Emma walked away quietly. She sat at the far end of the field, alone. Beneath her jacket, her shoulder was wrapped tightly in a white bandage. The pain pulsed through her arm with every breath, but that wasn't what hurt the most. What truly hurt was the laughter. The way people's eyes dismissed her before she even tried. The rest of the day followed the same pattern. Every test, every event, Emma came last, and every time the jokes grew louder. By the afternoon, the heat had intensified. Coach Davis called for the final test, the obstacle course. A mix of running, climbing, crawling, and strength challenges. The entire class gathered around as Carter's group bragged about how fast they'd finish. "All right," the coach said. "Pairs this time. You'll run together and help each other through. Carter, you're with Jason. Emma, you're with..." He hesitated. No one volunteered. Everyone avoided her gaze. Finally, Coach Davis sighed. "Fine, Emma, you'll run alone." A murmur of amusement spread through the group. "Perfect," Carter said. "She'll need a head start anyway." The whistle blew. Carter and his friends took off like rockets. Emma waited a second before starting. She ran with small, careful steps, her jacket flapping behind her. The first hurdle came, a high wooden wall. Carter vaulted over easily, his friends helping each other. When Emma reached it, she stopped, looked up. The wall seemed impossibly tall. "Come on, jacket girl," someone shouted. "You'll need a ladder for that." The laughter was cruel. Emma placed her hands on the wood and tried to lift herself, but pain shot through her shoulder. She gasped softly, stepped back and lowered her head. The coach crossed his arms, frustrated. "If you can't do it, just move to the next section." Something in Emma's eyes shifted then, a quiet decision forming behind the pain. She turned to face the group still watching and said softly, "I can do it." Her voice was so calm that even Carter stopped laughing for a moment. Then, slowly, she unzipped her jacket. The field fell silent. When the jacket fell from her shoulders, everyone saw the truth. Her right arm was a prosthetic, metal and carbon fiber gleaming under the sunlight, attached where her real arm once had been. The bandage wasn't for show. It was protecting the socket where the prosthetic joined her skin. No one spoke. The laughter died instantly. Even Coach Davis froze, realization dawning on his face. Emma adjusted the strap near her shoulder, took a deep breath and faced the wall again. This time she didn't look at anyone. She focused only on the obstacle in front of her. Her left hand gripped the wood. Her prosthetic arm clicked into position, locking the joint. Slowly, painfully, she pulled herself upward. Inch by inch, her body rose. The metal scraped against the wood, sparks of effort in every motion. Her classmates watched in stunned silence. Finally, with one last push, Emma pulled herself over the wall and dropped down on the other side. The sound of her landing broke the stillness, and then, for the first time all day, someone clapped. It was faint at first, then louder. Soon the whole class was cheering, but Emma didn't stop. She continued through the obstacle course, her movement still slower than the others, but filled with a quiet determination that made every second feel powerful. When she reached the rope climb, Carter stood nearby, watching. His face was unreadable. She started climbing. Her prosthetic hand clamped firmly onto the rope, each pull straining her muscles. Halfway up, she slipped but caught herself. And then she made it to the top. By the time she crossed the finish line, the applause was thunderous. Even Coach Davis, who had doubted her all day, stood with tears in his eyes. Carter stepped forward awkwardly, his earlier arrogance gone. "Hey, Emma," he said quietly. I didn't know." Emma smiled softly. "You didn't have to know," she said. "You just had to stop judging." Later that day, when everyone gathered to check their results, Coach Davis spoke to the class. "There's something you all need to learn," he said, his voice firm. "Physical training isn't just about muscles. It's about heart." And today, Emma showed more strength than anyone here. Emma stood in silence as her classmates turned to her, not with mockery this time, but respect. As the sun began to set, she walked toward the locker room. Carter caught up beside her. "Hey," he said again, more hesitantly. "You were amazing out there." She looked at him, smiled faintly, and replied, "You don't have to feel sorry. Just remember next time, sometimes people fight battles you can't see." He nodded. "Yeah, I get that now." Days turned into weeks. Something had changed around the school. The teasing stopped. People greeted Emma with smiles instead of laughter. Carter even started walking with her during morning drills, quietly matching her pace. One morning, when Coach Davis announced a volunteer team for the Regional Youth Challenge, Carter raised his hand first and then pointed at Emma. "She's on my team," he said. At first, Emma hesitated. Competing again wasn't easy. Memories of that first day, the laughter, the whispers, still echoed in her mind. But she agreed. Training began the next week. This time, Carter wasn't the arrogant leader he used to be. He pushed the group to respect everyone's pace, and when Emma struggled, he offered quiet encouragement. The other students followed his lead. Over time, Emma's confidence grew. Her speed improved. Her strength, too. On the day of the regional challenge, the school team arrived at the stadium surrounded by hundreds of other students from across the district. Cameras flashed. Spectators filled the stands. The same obstacle course waited for them, only larger, tougher, more unforgiving. Emma looked at it and felt the same nervous flutter she'd felt that first day. But this time she wasn't alone. Carter placed a hand on her shoulder. "We got this," he said simply. When the whistle blew, the team surged forward. Carter took the lead, but he kept glancing back to make sure Emma was there. She was, not fast, but steady. At the wall she paused, adjusted her prosthetic and climbed again. Faster this time, smoother. The crowd noticed. People started cheering. By the time she reached the last section, the rope climb, her arms burned with exhaustion. Her teammates were already waiting at the top, shouting her name. "Come on, Emma! You can do it!" Halfway up, the strap on her prosthetic slipped. Gasps rose from the crowd. She dangled for a second, gripping the rope with one hand. Pain shot through.